Hello my loves, welcome back. So today we are talking about Mars. Mars in Synastry. What does it mean if your partner's Mars falls into your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on house, or your Mars falls into your partner's house, sis? What does it mean? What can we learn? Well, first we need to remember what is Mars. Mars is our drive. Mars is where we push forward in life. Mars is our motivation. Mars is like action, right? And when the partner brings Mars into a particular area in our lives, well, that area will be challenged. This is generally a placement where we can feel a little challenged at times because the partner brings their pushy, motivational, thriving, and driving energy into this area. So, and this can also be an area where sometimes, we clash a little because the high power, high intensity of the partner is coming into this area. It's also part of the ego identity. Mars is part of the ego identity, and Mars is also the masculine principle. So we talked about Venus the other day. Venus brings the feminine principle in. Like now Mars is where we bring our masculine energies into the relationship. So, and that sometimes can, we can sometimes feel a little push, especially when it falls into a very sensitive area. Now let's look at it in the first house. That's already like a big deal. So the first house and the seventh house, they're both dealing with identity, they're dealing with mirror work, they're dealing with, obviously, relationships, they're dealing with direction. Specifically, the first house is our direction in life. And when someone brings their Mars into our first house, on the bright side, this can give us so much motivation. That person can help us push forward in a way we've never seen before. But the partner can also bring all their energy in that house, and it can overwhelm us. We can just drown in that energy. That can be a very overpowering energy where we need to make sure that we really push into the direction we want to push in and not the direction where the partner wants to push in, right? We need to make sure we still go into the direction we want to go in life. We follow our vision. We're not just blindly now following the other person's vision of life and taking on their identity, because they will certainly bring in a big identity. Even if it's if it's a placement in Pisces or Cancer, there is the energy still running high, and we will want to have our way. And by we, I mean the Mars person will want to have their way in your first house, your direction, your identity. So this is a placement where conflict can arise in a very physical way sometimes. Certainly in a loud way. Mars is a very loud energy. There is, but again, there's also the potential of the partner helping us move forward in life. This really is a placement where we have to be grounded within us and know where we want to go and what we want. If we don't, then it's very easy for the partner to just either run us over or like drag us behind them, and that can sometimes not feel so good. Mars in the partner's second house, or your partner's Mars in your second house, this is a placement that relates to worth, value, valuables, bringing things in, making money. This can be a beautiful placement for us to generate wealth together, because the high energy that the partner brings in here can help us, focus on that. Because Mars is a very focused energy, right? Mars is focused on one thing and one thing only, and he wants to bring this thing forward. He wants to manifest it into matter. He wants to make it real, make it happen. And Mars focuses all the energy onto that. So it can help us, to really grow really fast. But again, what are your values? Are you and Mars's values are aligned, right? Are you and your partner's values are aligned, and are you pushing forward in a way that is aligned with your values? That is a big question to ask, you know, or are you run over by your partner and your partner's values now matter more than yours, and you take them on, and then, you know, somewhere along the line, you're like, what was I thinking? What happened? What was I doing? This is also an energy that is fast and high. It's a high energy, but we can run out of steam at a certain point. And then what are we doing? You know, where are we at once we run out of steam together? It's a very masculine energy that comes into an area that is rather feminine. The second house is more of a feminine energy than a masculine energy. Obviously, there's always masculine energy presence, but the second house is more of like a being energy. There's doing present, but we got to be first. And the being is more important, and because we are basing the doing on the being. So what are we being? What's the being like? Who are we? And that's a big question in the second house. Who are we? What are our values, right? That's why we look at values, to understand who we are and what we want in life. So that you got to be really rooted in your feminine energy, and then use the masculine energy to push forward the agenda, your agenda, and not someone else's agenda. Third house, this is a placement where communication is going to definitely be a big deal here. And we got to be careful here that we do not argue too much. This can be an energy where arguing is highly likely. Arguments, big arguments, screaming matches, this can be an energy that manifests here. But this can also be an energy where we have really good discussions and really fun, interesting conversations. Again, it's a very it's a masculine energy that is brought into the third house. And the third house, it is highly masculine. The third house is the masculine energy in the third house is bigger because it's a doing house, right? We go from here to there, we run over there, we meet our friends here. It's a busy area, and we are very busy here already. So when Mars comes in, it brings in even more energy. So we can't forget to ground ourselves with that energy, right? We need to make sure, especially in communication, conversations, we have to make sure that we ground ourselves and don't, you know, blow up quickly, because that is an energy that can blow up very quickly. Mars in our or any, you know, one person's Mars in the other person's third house it's a bit of a blow up energy. Also, when it comes to thoughts and thinking, you know, make sure as the house person that you are clear about your thoughts. You know what you are thinking and what is yours and what is the other's, because the other will be very persuasive, trying to bring their ideas and making their ideas yours. Then Mars in the fourth can also be a very tricky placement, because the fourth house again is rather feminine in nature, and Mars can bring in a bit of aggression. So we have to make sure that we utilize that Mars energy wisely, both people, right, in the home. That we don't have screaming matches in the home, that we have like a calm home, because that is often not the case when we have Mars in the fourth house. Mars in the fourth house is not really a calm energy. And sometimes it doesn't mean it has to be a screaming match or a blow up or whatever, but it can just be this tense energy present in the home with Mars in the fourth house. We got to become aware of that and well, first manage it, and then maybe find a way to alleviate it as much as possible. You know, that Mars is a very tense energy, because Mars is highly strung. Mars wants to just go from here to here and nothing else matters. So there is this tense energy presence. And when we have it in the fourth house, that sometimes the home doesn't really feel as cozy and comfortable. Now, partner's Mars in the other partner's fifth house can be a highly sexual energy here. We can have a lot of fun in the bedroom with this energy. This is a beautiful placement for that. It is also a beautiful placement for being creative together and moving creative projects forward, right? The partner can help you with that. But again, with every Mars placement, you gotta be careful where the other person's ego is clashing with what you want and your creative potential and your creative energy. Mars in partner's 6th house. Now I find that very tricky because when I say this, of course, everything has a lighter expression and, you know, a more, well, a heavier expression. And in this Mars in the 6th house, the heavier expression often wins, so to speak, because again, we are dealing with more feminine energy, and when we deal with more feminine energy in an area and Mars comes in there, Mars tends to take over, and we need to make sure Mars doesn't take over our 6th house, because our 6th house is big. It's our health, it's our day-to-day routine, it's the way we work on the day-to-day basis, and you know, how we move around in our day-to-day lives. And specifically when it comes to health, we need to make sure the other doesn't overwhelm us. And I'm not saying the partner can create sickness in us. I'm not saying that. But Mars is an energy that is so fast, and we need to make sure that not to keep up with it, but to keep our own boundaries. You gotta have really strong boundaries with Mars in the 6th, with the partner's Mars in your 6th house. Really strong boundaries. I mean, really strong boundaries. So the other doesn't take over. Mars in partners 7th, this can be really lovely if you have a traditional relationship and you are the woman. So the house person is the woman, the Mars person is the man, and you have a traditional relationship. Then this is a really beautiful placement. I actually really like that placement. The other way around doesn't work as well. Doesn't work as well. And be like with the 1st house, you have to be careful here not to lose your identity, not to lose yourself in the relationship, because the partner can take over. And if you don't like that, if you don't want that, or if you're not strong enough, then you know you might spiral down a little bit with Mars in the 7th house. Mars in the 8th, like every placement in the 8th, not the easiest, but it can help you really go to places fast that you didn't want to go, that you didn't want to go at all, that you didn't want to go to at all, or that you didn't think you could get to in this lifetime. And what I mean by that is like this stuff, the inner child stuff, the inner work you're doing, right? The shadow work, all of that. Mars can help you, can trigger you in a way where you now have to look at all that stuff and you go there. It's almost like you slide down a slide so fast. Where before, you know, everything was blocked. It was blocked. And now there's all of a sudden, there's a slide and you slide in. And now you slide into all that stuff that it's a little tricky to look at, but now you're there. And now you can deal with it. So it can be a very helpful energy, but also it can be a bit of a volatile energy here where we sometimes don't really feel safe. You know, it really, again, you have to look at it. You have to look at your life. Of course, it always depends on what is going on in your life, but it can be a manifestation that is a bit trickier. But it can also be very helpful. Mars in partners, 9th house, a beautiful placement for you know, exploring the world together. That is probably if you both love that, I mean, you found your match. Like you traveling together, going places together, exploring the world together. It's like, you know, we book it now and we go tomorrow. That is that type of placement. Also, because the 9th house is about religion, about the belief system, This is when things can get a bit trickier, because especially when we have two different religions come together, or a religious person and a non-religious person, here we can run into issues. Mars will want to push through their agenda. Mars will want to push through their belief system. And if we don't want that, if we don't like that, if we don't, if we don't see eye to eye, that this can be a very explosive match. But we learn to see other ways of viewing the world, right? Mars makes sure we get to see that there is another way of seeing things. And even if you don't agree with it, if you don't like it, you will see it. What you do with it is that's up to you. But Mars will make sure to show you what Mars believes is right? What Mars believes is the truth. Mars in the 10th house, Mars in the partner's 10th house, I should say, it's a Mars that where we can find our partner at work. It's one of those placements again, right? We meet at work, we meet in a professional setting. Also placement where one partner is pushing the other to work together. This can actually be really successful coming together. Also, Mars in the 10th, this works in my opinion really well again for a couple that is very traditional, where one partner is the masculine, and again it works better if the man is the masculine, the woman is the feminine. The masculine partner is the breadwinner, it's the husband, the band around the house. I love that word. It's like I think it's a really beautiful way of looking at it, looking at the role of a husband and what he offers in the relationship. Of course, it's not the only thing he offers. There's other things people offer in relationships, but it's just I really think this is a beautiful analogy to look at the husband, the band around the house. This is a beautiful placement for that, for the traditional relationship. Mars in partner's 11th house, again, it's a friendship. It's a beautiful friendship placement. I would say this is an easier placement for Mars to be in. It's not as volatile as Mars can be in other areas, because Mars feels really comfortable here. When Mars comes into a more feminine house, Mars sometimes doesn't feel as comfortable. But here Mars can thrive really well, and this is a beautiful placement to have if friendship in a relationship is important for us. This can also again be a placement where we want to have a bigger purpose together, and especially the Mars person will push that bigger purpose forward. And by bigger purpose, I mean, more of a humanitarian purpose in life, in the world. Then our favorite placement, 12th house, Mars in the 12th is a very tricky fella, very tricky. Like all the other personal planets in the 12th house, Mars is not really feeling at home and welcome here. Probably the least of all of them. We talked about the moon, we talked about the sun, we talked about Venus already. Mars in the 12th, especially if it's a 12th house that has Aries in it, Sagittarius or Leo, Mars can go a little crazy here. It cause a lot of trouble in the relationship. If we want to look at it from a super mundane traditional astrology perspective, the 12th house, besides being the house of spirituality, the house of retreat, is also in traditional astrology looked at the house of prisons, hospitals, everything that takes us out of society. Now, Mars in this area can often bring up these topics that I just mentioned in a relationship. I'm not saying you're going to be with a partner that has to go to prison, right? Don't misunderstand me. But it is, of course, a possibility. Will it happen a lot? Probably not. And we often see it in in a way where there is more volatility in the relationship. There's of course always also an alternative view here, right? Mars can help us look into our own spiritual understanding in a different way. Mars can help us to really get into our own spirituality, have a spiritual practice, and take our spiritual practice to the next level, move our spiritual practice forward. So we can also look at this from the perspective of like really diving into the other side, really diving into your spiritual side in a way that you might have not done without that partner, right? He can really push you into that, and it can be good for you and it can help you. So there are these two sides. The 12th house, like I said, is a tricky area for the 3D reality, specifically the 3D consensus reality, where, you know, we all have a job, 9 to 5, we go to work, we come home, we feed the kids, we go to bed. It's not what the 12th house is about, right? The 12th house goes beyond. The 12th house goes away from all of that. And it is also a part of us. So we have to find a way to integrate it. And often when planets come into this area, we are forced to look at our 12th house energies and integrate them. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Leave a comment in the comment section. If you want a personal reading, you can click on the link in the description box. If you want to work with me one-on-one on a coaching basis, you can send me an email. And anything else, feel free to ask. I wish you a beautiful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.